Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Odd One Out. Today is May 12th, 2026. It's Tuesday. A quick reminder to please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me grow. I'm just a beginner channel. Going to be trying to explore different ways of, for example, doing normal YouTube videos and popping a video into the video and being able to react to it. But as I get closer to doing that, a larger following, more views, and a bigger channel will be helpful along the way. Today, I've got two videos for you. The first one's going to be about the transition of Germany into Nazi Germany, kind of how that happened. You look back in the history books, and sometimes we'll think, how was this allowed to happen? Did they not see this coming whenever it was happening along the way? How did they just allow a bunch of Jews and others, political dissidents, to just be killed, just rounded up and killed? How did they not see what Hitler was doing and think, wow, this is insane? So that'll be the first video, the conditions that surrounded it and what allowed it to happen. And the second video is going to be, of course, America is not, it's not Nazi Germany. It's not, the only people that have actually compared Hitler or Trump to Hitler is J.D. Vance. But it's, I do think that there's a lot of interesting parallels, as do many experts, between the two as far as the authoritarian state and the permission structure and just the total wanting to at least abolish of political opposition and the power structure. So those are going to be the two videos. I think it's important to understand because I sit around and the whole reason why I formed this channel is because I was like, what is happening all around me? Okay, if you don't like Kamala Harris, if you don't like Joe Biden, you don't like Barack Obama, okay. But what is happening to this country with Donald Trump and all the people that just follow him and think that he's God? Or and if I'm straw manning that, well then the steel man version of that is a strong, good leader that's good for the country. Who, how, what are people not watching? What's happening? Are they not? Did they not see January 6th? I'm gonna spoil this, so I'll just wait to go into that. So without any further ado, I will go into the research I've got up here for Nazi Germany. So post World War I crisis. They undermined democracy and crises. Undermined democracy. 1919's Versailles Treaty forced Germany to accept full war guilt, cede 13% of territory and 12% of its population, breeding nationalist resentment. 1923's hyperinflation and the currency collapse by November 1923 wiped out savings. The 1929 Great Depression saw industrial output and living standards plummet, roughly 40% output decline, and unemployment climb, peaking around 30%, radicalizing voters. And what you're going to see from this, too, part of the frustration in me is these are, what I just explained, are very drastic circumstances. If this happened to America, the Great Recession looked like a picnic, a Sunday picnic. This is stuff that's actually existential. People died, people starved of hunger. People were wondering, how the hell am I going to get by? And that's what's frustrating, is because people just really flip tables over, I won't say nothing, but it's just such minimal conditions compared to this. And I do think there's a lot more than that, than just frustrations with the economy. I think that there's a whole lot of bigotry as well, and Trump speaking for these people, that saying the things that they keep deep down and think, I shouldn't say, I shouldn't act like this, I shouldn't talk like this because I know it's wrong. And I know that society looks, frowns upon it, and then all of a sudden Trump comes out, they're like, yeah! So I do think there's a lot more than just the economic conditions, but it is frustrating. I mean, just like I read off to you, Germany was in dire straits. The Reichstag elections became fractious. By September 1930, the Nazis won 18.3% and communists 13.1%, making anti-democratic forces the largest bloc, so that won a plurality. Successive elections in July and November 1932 left no stable majority. July 1932 saw the Nazis basically 37.4%. These other two parties, I don't know these abbreviations, 21.6% and 14.6%. So they had a large plurality, almost double what the second opposition party had. In 1932, it dropped down to 33.1%, but the second party dropped down to 16.9%. So a lot of stability, a lot of fracturing, a lot of division. In this vacuum, President Hindenburg began governing by emergency decree under Chancellors Brüning, Papen, and Schleicher, bypassing parliamentary debate. Conservatives feared Bolshevism after the 1918-1919 leftist revolts, so many backed Hitler as a bulwark against communism. Again, like actual conditions, as people like actually freaking out for real reasons. Hindenburg's inner circle, the old guard, believed Hitler could be controlled, that sounds a lot like Trump, as chancellor and exploited his mass appeal. So, moving on to propaganda and media control. After the Nazi rise, Goebbels' propaganda ministry, created in March 1933, dominated culture. Goebbels vowed to place national education under Nazi control. By mid-1933, film, radio, theater, and the press were tightly regulated under Goebbels. The October 4th, 1933 editor's law forced all journalists to register and barred Jews from the profession. Daily press directives and propaganda conferences dictated content, editors violating strength of the Reich rules, risk job loss, or even a concentration camp. Within months of Hitler's appointment, the regime had shut down about 1,500 opposition newspapers, Aryanized Jewish publishing, and seized independent media. Again, as I'm going through these, you're going to see some parallels to what we're dealing with now. Simultaneously, mass rallies, newsreels, and radio broadcasts, including the 1933 Nuremberg rally, glorified Hitler and scapegoated enemies, normalizing Nazi ideology. Book burnings in 1933 saw students torch tens of thousands of un-German works, such as Jewish socialist, pacifist works, to signal the new cultural order. Again, the parallels are astounding. The attempt to silence the opposition party, calling the opposition party the enemy. Trump said the Democrats are the enemy from within, that if necessary should be handled by the military, that they are like a gnat, that they are scum, that they are vile, that they are anti-American. NSPM 7 labels anti-American things like as leftists, as pro-trans people. Those are anti-American. It labels them in the same group as terrorists. And the book burnings, like that's also, you see this in you know, get the woke books out of our schools, and just trying to silence any kind of anti-MAGA ideology, both not only just in the rhetoric, but also, like I said, NSPM 7, putting it into actual national security directives. Political intimidation and terrorism. Again, we're going to have more parallels here. Nazi paramilitaries enforced terror. ICE. By 1932, the SA, the brown shirts, again ICE, the brown shirts are more like ICE, had swelled to 445,000 members. The SS squads also grew. And I apologize, I'm still kind of a little bit under the weather. They routinely attacked socialists, communists, trade unionists, and Jews on the streets. For example, in March 1933, SA men in Königsberg ransacked an SPD office and beat a social democrat to death. In June 1933, the SA retaliated for a clash in Copenhagen by arresting 500 suspected dissidents, torturing 91 to death. Fear of violence paralyzed many citizens. If you're terrified, even if you think it's wrong, you're going to shut up. Moreover, Nazis showed force to ensure compliance. In January 1933, Hitler demanded loyalty to fight Bolshevism. Rumors of harsh reprisals stifled opposition. After the Reichstag fire in February 27, 1933, the regime invoked an emergency decree on the very next day that suspended habeas corpus and civil liberties. This People's Protection Decree legalized arrests of communists and allowed detention without charge. Within days of the fire, Dachau, I'm going to say some of these names wrong, Dachau, essentially the first concentration camp, opened March 1933, and it became the first Nazi concentration camp for about 4,800 early inmates, mainly communists and social democrats. The first ones to go in there were not even the Jews. They were the dissidents. They were the opposition. They were the people that would speak up against it, that had the gall to speak out against the government. They were the first ones to go so that the rest could happen. And so the rest of the people sat there quietly. Now you know how this happened, is people were terrified. And the actual opposition, the people that had the teeth and the backbone to fight, were getting killed and getting rounded up. Legal dismantling of democracy. The Nazis used laws to finish paramilitary politics. Elections in early 1933 were held under intimidation. That's literally, as to what level of intimidation we're going to see, in the midterms, we're likely going to see some form of intimidation, whether it's putting ICE at the polls, or if it's seizing the ballots. We're going to see some type of intimidation and authoritarian kind of taking ownership over the voting process. The SA/SS surrounded the Kroll Opera House. Communist deputies were jailed, and many SPD members abstained. Again, it's going to be about trying to keep Democrats at home, so at least enough to sway an election. On March 23rd, 1933, the Reichstag passed the Enabling Act. The only people that opposed were the actual opposition party, the SPD, giving Hitler legislative power independent of the Reichstag and president for 4 years. This vote took place amongst SA gunmen and with KPD deputies absent. A string of laws followed. April 7th, 1933 saw the civil service law expel non-Aryan, mostly Jewish, and left-wing civil servants. Trade unions were banned on May 2nd, 1933, their funds confiscated, and on July 14th, the law against new parties declared the Nazi Party the only legal party. Trump has said several times now, but one time was in front of the Navy, where he said that we have to get rid of the Democrats. We have to take them on. He put out a post like last month saying, now that the war in Iran is done with, the new enemy, the last remaining enemy, are the Democrats. It's unbelievable. And people just sit there. We're not even under the same kind of conditions. We're not under the same everybody getting jailed yet. We're not under the same kind of oppression. And people just sit here. Like, people that pretend to be serious adults that say they love freedom and democracy just sit here and just watch this happen. They're like, no, that's my guy, so I'm for it. By mid-1933, Germany had become a one-party totalitarian state, which is what Trump wants. Like, literally, his rhetoric shows it. It's not in question. Many business and military leaders lent Hitler legitimacy and funds. What does that sound like? $400 million donated in private funds to the ballroom. He's completely got the corporate interest at his back, and that's a lot of it's because of quid pro quo. On February 20th, 1933, Hermann Göring convened 25 top industrialists at Göring's I'm going to say these so wrong. At Göring's Womenstreich residence. They raised roughly 2 to 3 million in their currency for the Nazi election campaign. Gustav Kreuz alone pledged 1 million of this currency, and 4 IG Farben directors contributed 400,000. Nazi Minister Goebbels, who is the modern day version of him, is Stephen Miller, and that's actually very accurate. Some of this stuff is not, it's just like kind of like the history rhymes, not repeats kind of thing. Like, literally, Stephen Miller is Goebbels reincarnated. Nazi Minister Goebbels reported a goal of 3 million of the currency. Afterward, Nazis cultivated industry. Hitler assured them democracy threatened private enterprise, promising to crush trade unions and communists. Corporations reap rewards. IG Farben later used slave labor for war production. Kreuz expanded armaments. High judges, military officers, and church leaders genuinely acquiesced. In Parliament, the DNVP, Conservatives and Catholic Center, initially sided with Hitler on key measures. And the result of this is some of the legislators, such as the key Nazi legislation and party support, like the Enabling Act, saw a yes of 444 to no 94. Just overwhelming support. I did not realize, actually, that... Wow, 538, okay. 538, just like... Oh, well. I'm getting sidetracked there. Anyways, scapegoating and ideology, which that the right wing in MAGA is all about scapegoating the trans people and immigrants just to keep you distracted. From 1933, the regime relentlessly demonized Jews, socialists, Roma, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, and others as enemies. That's what they do with trans people, with immigrants, with Democrats, with leftists. Propaganda portrayed Jews as culprits for defeat and economic woes. Nuremberg pageants and Der Stürmer inculcated anti-Semitism. Early Nazi laws targeted these groups. The party's 1925 and 1933 platforms called for deportation of Jews and expropriations of Marxists. Repressive actions intensified. SA/SS boycotts of Jewish shops, confiscation of Jewish businesses, and September 1935 Nuremberg laws barred Jews from citizenship. Ordinary Germans were urged to accept these measures as necessary for national survival. Dissenters were labeled unpatriotic. It's like it shakes you to the core. of just how of all the parallels to today. If you're against what we're doing in Iran, if you're against what the regime is doing with the military, if you're against the military, you're not a patriot. That's one of the biggest parallels. Is how MAGA thinks that they push so hard that this is the patriotic thing. It's a patriot. It's a patriot. We're the patriots. We're the party of the flag. And it's like, because if you oppose them, oh well, you're unpatriotic. Oh well, you hate this country. And do people just not study history? Did we not go to the same kind? Do we not get the same kind of schooling as kids? It's really odd to me, and especially as you get to be an adult and you have the power of the vote, which is very powerful, and you have kids, like you have a family. Take this stuff seriously. Do you care at all about being the number one country on the planet? You're watching it burn in front of you. Do something. Many atrocities were hidden or rationalized. We've already seen this with Alex Preddy being shot. Renee Good, obviously too, but absolutely undisputed, not guilty would be Alex Preddy, sitting there and he's blowing a whistle and has a camera in his hand. His gun is holstered. He's got a concealed carry license, not doing anything. The worst thing he did was pick up somebody that was thrown to the ground, and then he got wrestled around and shot and killed, shot 10 times. And what was the first thing? Before his body even got cold, you had Kristi Noem, you had Stephen Miller, you had all these people out in the administration go out and say he was a terrorist coming to try to inflict maximum damage. It's like, if we didn't have that on video, that just would have been the narrative. That there was some crazed terrorist liberal that came to kill ICE. And it's like, really? And then you see it amongst all the voters. If you're in Oklahoma like me, you maybe had conversations with people that were like, oh, you don't bring a gun to a protest. Oh, he's an idiot. Like, what is he doing out there? Like, just completely rationalizing what we just saw in front of our eyes. It's unreal. Again, I used to wonder as a kid, and I think a lot of you people used to wonder, how the hell did that happen in Germany? How did they let this happen? We know how it happened. We're watching it right now. It's not to the same extent, but it's rhyming, and it's literally the same kind of buildup. And if we don't get out in front of it and stop it, I'm really interested to see what these midterms are going to be like. If we don't get out in front of it and stop it, this is the same kind of totalitarian, authoritarian control, dictatorship, killing people, literally killing people, rounding people up that you don't like. So, to most Germans before 1939, large-scale murder was unimaginable or portrayed as legal punishment. Early camps, such as Dachau or Oranienburg, held political prisoners under the guise of protective custody. The euthanasia program, which was between 1939 and 1941, killed 70,000 disabled Germans in secret. During the war, Einsatzgruppen massacres in the East were kept out of the headlines. Even many Nazi officials spoke of a people's community while systematic terror and murder occurred. Historians note that censorship, propaganda, and fear kept most Germans unaware of full atrocity scale. Nonetheless, the propaganda is just unreal. Nonetheless, underground networks learned of some killings via rumors and foreign reports, but lacked power to stop them. Resistance and oppression. Organized resistance was small. Socialized and communist parties were outlawed by mid-1933, and many leaders were jailed or forced into exile. The Roman Catholic and Protestant churches protested intermittently, but chiefly complied under duress. Youth groups and the White Rose Student Group, which was executed in February 1943, offered isolated defiance. Senior military conspirators acted only by 1944, essentially when it was over. Whenever they knew it was all crumbling, and it's like, okay, well, it's time to save our ass. You're going to see the same kind of thing with this regime. Maybe it has to be whenever Trump, passes away of a natural death, or gets impeached or something. They're all, oh, we're against this. No, you're not. Stop. You're just saving your ass. Overall, elite and popular opposition failed to halt the regime. In most cases, the Gestapo swiftly arrested plotters. By 1938, leading SPD figure Otto Wels was in exile, and many social democrats and communists perished in prisons and camps. Lessons today. Historians such as Kershaw, Evans, Shirer, Brosat, Mommsen, etc. emphasize that Nazi rule emerged through the legal means and incremental erosion of rights. Hitler was elected. Donald Trump was elected. The normalization and the erosion of rights, you're seeing it in both. People are getting deported for pro-Palestinian speech. You're getting told you can't bring a gun to a protest. Jimmy Kimmel is several times now being threatened to be taken off the air for making jokes. And like they want to try to compare it to Donald Trump being pressured by Twitter and Facebook and removed on like YouTube, for example, for lying over and over and over again during a mass pandemic, leading people astray, people dying as a result of it. It's like it's a massive difference between the literal FCC chair, between what you saw with YouTube, for example, with pressuring Trump, and the FCC chair saying, look, and this is an actual quote, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way, talking about Jimmy Kimmel and ABC and getting canceled. One over jokes, one about death. The Reichstag Fire Decree and Enabling Act showed how crisis and propaganda can be used to overthrow democracy, which is, I think that we've had some false flags. Whether it be Charlie Kirk's assassination, or whether it be some of the attempts we've seen on Trump's life, or the anti-ice, like who writes anti-ice? Who says that on those bullet casings at one of the, I about said concentration camp, which would not be wrong, at one of the immigration facilities. There's so many false flags in my opinion, and I think that it's all meant to try to make this stuff okay, to make emergency rule and authoritarian rule okay. Widely cited lessons include the danger of extreme polarization, which we have, and scapegoating, which we have, and the complicity of apathy, which we have. People don't care. As Kershaw notes, Hitler took power legally by exploiting fear and dividing opponents. Like it's unbelievable reading, and just how similar this is. Any democracy can unravel when institutions are undermined. What's the first thing he said coming down the golden escalator? The media, the fake news media, like completely telling you that the media is lying about everything, that you can't trust Harvard, you can't trust universities, you can't trust lawyers. Everything gets questioned. There's no institutions, there's like higher learning institutions, medical institutions, legal institutions are all just being totally eroded right in front of our eyes. And half of the Americans are clapping like seals. And it's like, what are we doing? How are we grown adults? This is a fever dream. Okay, I think that'll wrap it up for this first video. Just kind of an explanation of how we, again, the parallel is crazy, of how Nazi Germany became democratically elected and then just did a full mission creep. They got a little bit over a decade to make this happen. Donald Trump is trying to make it happen in the blink of an eye, which is why I think that he's crashed and burned in his popularity in just a little over a year, because they just tried to put pedal to the metal and let's go. So that's it for the Germany video. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Again, if you can please like, comment, and subscribe, I will get on to making the second video now, talking about how this is happening in the USA. Again, it's not the same. History doesn't actually repeat itself, but it rhymes. Thank you. Odd one out.